Greetings! We have some exciting quarterfinals lined up at the 132nd Wimbledon Championships. The big three will be among the last eight, and it's possible that all will get through to the semifinals. The maestro Roger Federer is of course through to the quarters, and I want to talk about just how he got there. Tomorrow Federer will play the big serving South African Kevin Anderson, and I also want to preview that match for you. The first thing to note about the match, however, is that it's going forward on court 1, not center court, possibly due to a request made by Novak Djokovic. Comment below on this. I think Federer probably just granted the Djokovic request. In any case, whatever court he's playing on, Roger Federer is surely still the favorite to win the tournament, but at this moment, at least two others also have a meaningful chance. Two-time winner Rafael Nadal and three-time winner Novak Djokovic. Both look almost as strong as ever. History, I think, is coming to a crossroads, folks. Nadal and Djokovic are Roger's two greatest rivals. Federer has previously fallen to each of these men on the Wimbledon lawns. Federer's legacy is therefore, I think, to some degree at stake here. Will he protect and redeem it, or will Nadal and Djokovic rise up again to stem the GOAT's march? Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Today I want to talk about developments in the third and fourth rounds and preview the quarterfinals for you. From this point on, we'll be doing daily coverage of Wimbledon with as much detail and insight as I can provide. So subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. This is Tennis Talk Daily. Although the upsets on the men's side have paled in comparison to the slaughter that's taken place on the women's side, the men's third round did produce some notable casualties, namely Sam Querrey, Nick Kyrgios, and the uneven Alexander Zverev. Querrey fell to Gael Monfils in a four-set match that saw Monfils crushing the American, who was a semifinalist just last year, with tremendous all-court play, serving, and dancing footwork. Kyrgios was outdone by Nishikori in straight sets. Kyrgios later blamed the loss on panic and nerves. Certainly the Australian seemed to lose interest in a match he was not winning, but credit to Nishikori for solid play, effective footwork, and most of all, perseverance. After stopping the qualifier Ernest Gulbis's Cinderella run in the fourth round, Nishikori is now having the deepest Wimbledon run of his career. His quarterfinal opponent will be Novak Djokovic on center court. Djokovic came through Karen Khachanov in straight sets without incident in the fourth round. The three-time Wimbledon winner and recent finalist at Queen's Club has dropped just one set in his quarterfinal run. He's serving surprisingly well, has unsurprisingly recorded some tremendous return games, and in his match against Kyle Edmund, with the crowd zealously in favor of Edmund, confirmed his uncanny ability to thrive on adversity. Djokovic holds a dominating 13-2 record against Nishikori and has beaten him the last 12 times they've played. Most of the good money is therefore on Djokovic to set aside Nishikori and reach the semifinal, where it's becoming increasingly likely that he will face longtime rival Rafael Nadal. Nadal has had a very straightforward run into the quarterfinal. Up to this point, in fact, he's arguably had the easiest draw of any of the top seeds. His third-round opponent, the relatively inexperienced 19-year-old Australian Alex de Minaur, was like putty in his hands. And Rafa's fourth-round opponent, the 24-year-old Czech Yuri Vesely, looked like an amateur under the pressure of Nadal's dictating ground strokes and forceful service games. Vesely, who had beaten Diego Schwartzman and Fabio Fognini en route to his second fourth-round run at Wimbledon, delivered some big serves, but struggled to find consistency from either the baseline or at the net, and often looked downright sloppy. Vesely did manage to break Nadal once in the fifth game of the third set, which is not terribly surprising given that Nadal's first-round opponent, Dudi Sela, also broke him once, and his second-round opponent, Mikhail Kukushkin, broke him twice. Yet Nadal came through all of these opponents in straight sets. Why? With any other player surrendering a break of serve serve to the opponent is a bad thing. But when Nadal gets broken, it seems actually to improve his game. Rafa's ability to break opponents back is almost superhuman and an important key to why he wins, because his service games are penetrable. But when you break Nadal, he will almost always come storming back to do substantially greater damage than he would have otherwise done. With Vesely, needless to say, Nadal immediately broke back and had snatched up the third set and the match before even the keenest of spectators could begin to comprehend just what had happened. So Rafael Nadal is into his first quarterfinal at Wimbledon since 2011. It's not terribly surprising under the circumstances. For one, high temperatures last week hardened the turf and made the bounces a bit higher. Even more important, the competition for Rafa has been fairly low. None of his opponents so far has really tested Nadal's mettle. So will Juan del Potro give Nadal a greater challenge in the quarterfinal? Nadal holds a 10-5 record against Del Po and has won both of their meetings on grass. The tower from Tandil has had a relatively harder draw and still dropped only one set. Yet in light of Juan Martin's struggle to hold serve against Gilles Simon in the fourth round, Simon broke him 5 times. Nadal is poised to blaze a trail into the semifinal. Federer has had some moderately better opponents than Nadal has had so far, but Federer also has not been truly tested yet. At this point, he's protecting his service games better than Nadal, and better too than his quarterfinal opponent Kevin Anderson or potential semifinal opponent Milos Raonic, judging by the number of times each player has been broken. Federer's averaging well over a 90% winning percentage behind his first serves, 67% behind his seconds, and his ground game and return game prowess look far superior to the warm-ups and arguably as good as ever. Federer's third-round win over 28-year-old world number 64 German Jan Lennard Struff was straightforward, 6-3, 7-5, 6-2. At 56%, Federer's first serve percentage dipped significantly from previous matches, but he more than made up for the dip with powerful and sometimes deceptive kicks on his second serves, a dependable ground game, and immense forward momentum in point construction. Federer's fourth-round match with Adrian Mannarino yesterday raised the bar a bit more. The left-handed Mannarino is not a big server and appeared somewhat disheveled on the court, but on a good day the Frenchman brings an impressive toolkit that has produced many deep runs on the circuit and made him an ATP top 25 player. His serving is functional. Accelerating cross-court backhands are among the weapons he brings from the backcourt. Recognizing this strength, Federer seemed to target Mannarino's forehand in rallies, resulting in many fed backhand to Mannarino forehand exchanges. I think it's safe to say that Adrian Mannarino's tennis nightmare came true in the first set, in which Federer could do no wrong and Mannarino could do no right, resulting in the first 6-love set win Roger has produced in 2 years. The set took all of 16 minutes and Mannarino won 5 points the entire set, although he did push Federer to a break point on serve. The Frenchman immediately upped his game in the second set, however, and even held at love in one game. But in the 11th game, he could no longer bear the surge of Federer's multifaceted return game, whipping forehands, and the endless variety flowing from Roger's backhands. Up 6-5, Federer held at love to pocket the second set. The third set saw the players holding serve, Federer with a bit more ease for the first 8 games. In the 7th game, Federer became visibly frustrated with errors that enabled Mannarino to hold once again. In the next game, with Federer serving, Mannarino attained a double break point and then a third. Federer saved them all masterfully, but at one point, and I had to do a double take on this, I think he grunted when hitting his second serve. And then no more, as I recall. One time alone. Strange. Federer then held his serve easily and broke Mannarino the very next game to go up 5-4. He then served for the match, holding at love with solid serving and adroit net play, including one side spin forehand that looked as much like a stroke of a paintbrush as the stroke of a tennis racket. I do think Mannarino was a stronger and more battle-tested fourth-round opponent than Nadal's Vesely and perhaps even Djokovic's Kachanov. At the same time, I don't think any of the opponents Federer has faced so far has required him to fire on all cylinders. Will his quarterfinal opponent Kevin Anderson do so? The South African will require more from Roger and perhaps a different approach altogether. One of the reasons Roger got a little frustrated with his return game in the third set against Mannarino is that Mannarino is not a big server at all, and Federer knows that some of the biggest servers in the tournament, including Anderson, are in his line. Federer has won each of his 4 matches against Anderson in straight sets, not a single tiebreak. The last time they played, however, was 2015, and Anderson has been experiencing more success since his showing at the final of the US Open last year. He won the New York Open in February. For a tall man, he moves fairly well. He brings a thunderous serving capability that gives him meaningful advantages on the grass. He had a run to the final of Queen's Club in 2015 where he fell to Murray. He made it to the 4th round of Wimbledon last year where he lost to Djokovic. Anderson is a good quarterfinal opponent for Roger because he is a sign of things to come. Roger is going to have big servers coming at him to a greater degree than either Nadal or Djokovic. First Anderson, then either Isner or Raonic in the semifinal. These are arguably the biggest servers in the tournament. Isner in particular is playing great on the turf this year, his deepest run at Wimbledon. Certainly the inroads into Isner's service games so far have been very narrow, few and far between. But on the other hand, Roger Federer is one of the original slayers of the serve bot. Federer helped burn down the servers of yore and then rose up on their ashes with a big serve of his own. After the Mannarino match, Federer commented on the effect that the high temperatures have had on the grass. The grass has become drier and harder. Perhaps Isner and Anderson have benefited from this, since the courts are playing more like hard courts, essentially. And Federer too. But, Roger said, and Roger knows, the second week I always feel like it plays different. The court is used in the back. You can move better. Then it's just a question of how warm it is. The forecast this week looks dry, but by no means scorching hot. Highs in the low 80s, lows in the 60s overnight, so the courts might stay a little softer, lowering the bounces, which may not favor Nadal or Djokovic. My semifinal predictions are, in the top half, Federer versus Isner, which Federer will win, though perhaps not in straight sets, to land a spot in his 12th Wimbledon final. In the bottom half, the semifinal will be Nadal versus Djokovic, because I don't think either Delpo or Nishikori is up to the task of slaying these legends in their respective quarterfinals. This means that we may very well be on course to a Federer versus Nadal final. And with that, I must say, I think we're witnessing history here, folks. The outcome of this tournament has perhaps greater implications this year than it has had for many years, for Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. And as a spectator, commentator, and tennis enthusiast, it is wondrous to watch. Lots more to come, so subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Signing off from Boston.